Good day, everybody. This is Carlos once again from My Life Without Limits Challenge. My Life Without Limits, podcast. Why am I thinking the challenge here?
You've got challenge on your mind.
It's coming up actually soon, and I'm going to be speaking about it at some point. However, it's My Life Without Limits podcast, and I do want to introduce our probably the most sane person in the show, which is Leah Eisen. It's the one that never makes mistakes too much, right, Leah?
Oh,
And so I just want to introduce Leah first, and then Leah would introduce our amazing guest we have today on our show. Leah, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well, thank you. Doing good. Just good. Keeping busy, but it's a good busy.
I hope you have challenge on your mind as well, because
I do have challenge on my mind.
For some reason, I have the challenge on my mind for some reason.
No, I always have our challenge on my mind because it's such a struggle to get. So we'll talk about it at some point because it's a fun event that we do, and I think people should come out and have some fun.
And it's going to be called different now. It used to be called the Life Without Limits Challenge, but it's going to be called the Mobility Challenge this year. But we'll be talking about it on a different time. Sorry about the mistake earlier, but anyways, glad to hear that you are doing well, Leah.
Yes.
I hope you're enjoying the weather more than I am, because
I do. I like rain. I have no problem with it.
I know you like rain. I don't like rain. It makes me tired. And,
well, I can understand that, but I find with rain, it's like there's no expectations to do anything. Yeah. It's like no one expects you to go for a hike or go run errands. You can just stay home.
Oh, there are some people that go on a hike in the rain. I can tell you that.
That's probably true.
For sure.
Anyways,
yeah, I want you to introduce our amazing guest today. We have fantastic guest today, as we always do. Always try to have great guests. We had some fantastic guests last episode, and now we got new guest with us here that I want to let you introduce, and then she can talk a little bit about herself and talk about what she does best, so then our listeners can learn from our wonderful guest today. So please take it away, Leah.
We have our new friend Meaghan here, and we're all going to learn about her together because I don't know much, but you know how I am. I see things on social media, and if it just strikes me, I will creep them and stalk them until I get them on the show. So I had a Facebook ad pop up on my feed, and it had all of my favorite words, inclusion and community and coffee, and those are all my favorite words. And so I looked into it, and I was like, okay, we need to learn more. So I just reached out and said, come on the show, let's learn more about you. So we're all going to learn together about what Meaghan's doing in Edmonton. Welcome, Meaghan. So why don't you just tell us a bit about yourself?
Hi, thanks for having me. I also really love coffee. I don't function without it. So that's I'm glad that you clicked with that.
Oh, yes.
So my name is Meaghan, obviously. And I live just outside of Edmonton in Sherwood Park, and I have 2 kids. My daughter Hannah is 3, and my son Jake is 5, and he's on the autism spectrum.
Okay.
So the inspiration for kind of my business came long before, just in my own experience in the workforce. But I just thought I'd tell you about who I am. I'm
absolutely
busy and crazy, and I also have ADHD and an anxiety disorder. So
we're going to be best friends.
Yeah, Leah and you're going to be best friends.
So I really resonate with, I have now just fully accepted that I'm part of the neurodivergent community. And at first that was really hard for me because I didn't get my ADHD diagnosis until last year. So I was in my 30s already. And I was just like, I have what? Yeah. I'm not hyper, and I don't run around and I can't stop. I usually can't get moving some days. But it was really eye-opening, and it also made me learn, because I have done all kinds of jobs. I have worked in daycares, funeral homes, I've done desk jobs, I've done everything like that. And when I hit my lowest point, kind of with my anxiety and everything like that, I was working a desk job. And so I've been on a medical leave, and I'm going to school, and I just decided that I wanted to create opportunities for people that typical desired employment just does not work for them. Because I mean, I had this sweet 9 to 5, like sitting at a desk, good benefits, and I was the most miserable I had ever been. So that's kind of where Connections Cafe and Market came to be. It's something I have thought about for many years. And then I actually approached our entrepreneur in residence at Northwest College. And I said, you know, this is my idea. What do you think? Where can I go with it? Because we at Northwest, we have a business conference every, I think it's just in the springs, but they're trying to, in the springs. In spring. But I think they're going to try and do a fall one as well. And during that, I attended a session where there was talks about, if you want to be an entrepreneur, the time to start is when you're still a student.
Oh,
so
I never would have thought that.
I never would have thought that either.
There's more funding opportunities. So if there's any students out there listening and you have a killer business idea, talk to your school. Somebody there might know something. I know Nate and Northwest have really started to amp it up. If anybody's listening in Calgary, Bow Valley, I'm working a program through them right now. I'm actually going to another pitch competition next week, which is exciting and terrifying all at the same time.
Yeah, it would be.
But yeah, so that's kind of who I am and how I got to where I am now.
And what's your business again? Sorry,
No, that's perfectly fine. So I want to open a cafe and local made store. So kind of Starbucks meets like Maker's Keep. I don't know if anybody knows what that is, but it's those local made stores where they curate from local creators.
Yes.
But my hope is to hire neurodivergent and disabled individuals, as well as all those items in that handmade store be created by them or in partnership with them.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It is fantastic.
It is fantastic.
We know a lot of moms, a lot of our CP moms do these little businesses because they need more income to, you know, and they want to be able to stay home. So they're all entrepreneurs. And sometimes it's that whole creating something. So there's lots of parents in our community that like, sometimes I'm like, how do you even find the time for that? Like, it's like incredible stuff. But
and we have some connections with some businesses, small businesses with sensory toys and stuff like that, right? Yeah, that's what
and then I mean, even some of our programs, I mean, there's artwork, you know, that they do. And we've always talked about finding a way for them to make an income themselves as well with all this artwork they create. And I just love the idea, something like that. I've always loved that.
Thanks. And so from there, it's also, I want to offer like not only, sorry, my ADD is kicking in apparently.
That's
so
fine.
I not only want to like offer to sell their stuff, but I also want to offer them some coaching and try and create some mentorships as well around how to build a successful business, how to scale it, all that stuff. And then on top of that, just hosting other community events. So, you know, anything from a paint night to speed dating to budgeting 101, just really creating a space where anybody can come together. And then the flip side of it is that I want it to be as sensory friendly as possible. So I'm thinking customizable light on tables, having headphones, tablets, weighted blankets or weighted lap pads, everything like that available, just so that people can all feel comfortable. Because I know sometimes, like, hold on, Clover, leave that alone. My dog's
is it a dog?
It's a dog.
Oh,
just trying to steal my daughter's toy off the counter.
Aw.
Yeah. But having those available, because I know just myself having a neurodivergent child or a neurodivergent child, sometimes you forget those items, or sometimes you just don't feel like it's a spot that fits for you. So I know my kids love shopping, but oftentimes a food court can be, now you're up in here. A food court can be too noisy.
Clover, let's see Clover. Hello. Hi, Clover. Oh,
for our audience that is not going to be looking at this, there's a dog, beautiful dog, in the screen that we're seeing. From Meaghan. Thank you, Meaghan, for sharing that.
No problem. She apparently needs attention this morning. But so just, I know, like my kid, when you go to a food court, if it's really busy and the noise is buzzy, he eats under the table and then people stare at you. That is the worst part, is that it was like, ew, like your kid's eating under the table, and like, and I want to make a space where like, who
for
cares?
sure.
Like,
Exactly.
He needs.
As long as he eats, it's fine.
Right.
Well, that's exactly it.
Right?
Yeah. Is Clover like just a family pet, or is Clover, is she learning anything to do with your son?
No,
or she's just
our family pet. My kids both really love animals, and my son is very rough and tumble, so we ended up deciding on a bigger dog just for that. But she's like the most patient. She's very patient. Like this week, his big thing was they would be sitting on the couch together, and then he would sit on her and be like, "Clover's a couch," and she would just give him a kiss and continue about her day. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that.
They love them. So
no, I love this whole thing you're doing. My daughter, we come to Sherwood Park quite a bit for, she sees a therapist at the hospital there, and we were doing some ADHD stuff with her, and then of course I'm closely following along because we had an ADHD, I guess she was an expert from the ADHD, what was it called, the LD and ADHD network, the Learning Disability and ADHD network. Carola Tiltman, her name was. And she opened I've always thought that about myself. Going through it with my daughter, I was like, oh, I'm 100%. But then you don't want to say that because you don't really know. But after talking to her, I was like, oh yeah, like it's totally.
Well, and for me, like, I just never understood why I never really fit anywhere. Like, you see these people who've been like lifelong friends, and they have this whole group, and I have like one person, maybe two, that I've been friends with for more than 5 years, right? And so, and even just in high school, like, I wish I would have understood more then, because I was always the like wait till the deadline kind of girl, but I did like 80 different activities, so I never slowed down. And so I never really understood, and also it just was missed in women because it wasn't it wasn't studied at that point because we weren't hyperactive, like
exactly, like boys are. We talked a lot about that with her, about how it is mixed diagnosis, and it's not usually until you're a parent and you're trying to multitask and organize your life and a family life and then work that these start coming out. And plus, when you notice it in your kids, and then you start going, oh my gosh, like this explains so much about
my kids are both already too young, and I'm already like, that could be.
That could be, right? I know. And then we're always so scared to sort of do that self-diagnosis, but then sometimes it's like hard to not just really look. Because then I started looking back about, how I always had a messy locker. My binder always had paper sticking. I can't get organized for the life of me. And I never understood, and then it was like this whole thing too with why am I so tired at the end of the day when I've just been sitting at my desk working, but it's because my mind is just, I'm jumping from project to project, and it's.
My tattoo artist always thinks I'm crazy. I've gotten a couple tattoos in the last couple of years, and I always tell her I'm so relaxed right now, and she doesn't get it, but it's because my brain focuses. I'm like, like, don't jump because it'll wreck the tattoo. And so I actually find it really soothing. I almost fall asleep sometimes, and she's like, I don't get it. And I'm like, well, it's just because it stops my brain.
Like, and the noise too.
Yeah.
I had brown noise on the whole morning when I was working. I put on brown noise just because I'm like, okay, I need to focus on something. And then I put that on and I find it really helps. But it's like, yeah, oh, that's interesting.
Yep.
That's actually really cool. I like that. But I like too that you mentioned about having the items at the cafe, because I know I used to have, when I thought my daughter just was like anxiety, like there's so much anxiety issues. I made a little kit, that had gum in it, fidgets, her glasses cleaner, just something to carry all the time, because we would go somewhere and then she would, just need something. And then I downsized to a nicer purse, and now I don't have it with me. And then sometimes we go somewhere and I'm like, oh, I wish I would have grabbed a fidget or something for you. And so I like that idea of like knowing that you can go somewhere and it's there for you.
And I don't know about anybody else, but I'm just really forgetful. So I can plan to take all that stuff. And then I get to, I'm like, oh, the bag's at home. Like, great.
Yes.
Always.
So frustrating. To be, yes. Yeah. You like that too sometimes, Carlos, do you find?
I try not to be very forgetful, but sometimes it could be jumping from project to project. So I think I do have a little bit of a ADHD somehow. I think so, but have never been diagnosed. But I do feel myself sometimes jumping from project to project, which sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, because again, you don't focus straight too much on what you need to focus on.
Yeah.
It's but I really like your going back to what you mentioned about your kid eating underneath the table and people just staring at it. I was having a discussion with another former guest that we had on our podcast, which we started a little business kind of together in the background. But anyways, we were having a discussion about how even because we both have a disability, or I have a disability, sometimes when you see another person with a different disability, whether it's autism, Down syndrome, even if you have a disability, you tend to stare at that person. And then once you stare at that person, you go, well, why are you doing that? Like, you don't like doing that. You don't like when people do that to you. Why do you do that to people? You know what I mean? And I realized it because it's what you were saying, Meaghan, today is true. Like, why would people stare at my kid if he's eating underneath the table? As long as he's eating, that's okay. As long as he's feeding himself, it's fine. I'm guessing people do it because it's different. It's completely different than what the normal people do. Like, but again, then what's normal? There's no normal. Like, normal is different for everybody, right? So if the person is eating underneath the table, who cares? Like, honestly, I prefer, I think people should eat. No, I'm not making a joke about this. People should eat wherever they want to eat, wherever they feel comfortable eating. If it's underneath the table, eat underneath the table. Like, come on. Or if you find it weird, go and ask. Like, that's what I always ask people. Go and ask. Like, I'm a little curious. Why is your daughter eating underneath the table, or son eating? And then most likely a person will respond to you, like, would say, it's because of this, this, and this, right? I find it very amazing that your son eats underneath the table, and I think it's cool. I think it's very cool, because
he blows my mind, because he just looks for those solutions. Even we have a spray park near our house, and it's got like these hollowed out boulders, and when the day just gets to be too much for him, he literally goes and like hammocks himself in there and crosses his legs, and he just like relaxes, and he just stays there until he's ready to come out. Like, he, like, for 5, he's very, like, we've done a lot of programming with him, but he just like blows my mind, because he totally will, if he doesn't get too far stimulated or too overstimulated, then he's able to kind of look for those releases on his own, which is really great.
That's awesome.
People could learn a lot from that.
Yeah, that's very awesome, because some people don't know what they can do if if they want to find some real, mostly if their son or daughter have some sort of autism, right? Or stuff like that in the spectrum. Sometimes they don't find out. And when they grow older, they find even more stimulation, more different things to do so that they can calm their mind. Like, I think it's very, very awesome in a way. So.
Yeah. Going back to the staring thing, I don't know about you guys, but I always have these moments because I know some people don't mind it and some people absolutely hate it.
Yeah.
And so I know I always have these like moments of panic if I'm walking in a mall and I see somebody with like a disability, whether it's, you know, a kid with Down syndrome or somebody's having a meltdown, and I'm like, do I look? Do I not look? Do I look? Do I not look? And I'm like, I don't know what to do. And then my anxiety's like, oh my God, they're going to think I'm acting like they don't.
I know.
Oh my God. Like,
I stare, but it's because I want them to look at me. Like I want to make the contact. So I'll stare at them, can keep kind of looking and try to get their attention because I want them to look at me so I can say, hi, you know, and pay attention to them. But I know that, you know, they're just doing their thing. But yeah, I think that's the thing, right? You don't want to really get caught staring and they might not understand, but I still do it. I'm always just like staring, especially kids. I'm always like,
oh, because kids are cute. Kids are cute.
I usually try and catch the parents' eye too. Sometimes I'll like look at them and be like, "Oh, like you're doing good," because sometimes you don't feel like you're doing good. So
yes, exactly. And you want to give them that sort of like, I get it, you know, like I fully might not fully because there's maybe a different disability, but you know, like just to give them that sort of like, we got this together type thing, you know.
And I don't know why. I don't know if you know, Meaghan, but I don't know why as a parent sometimes, I'm not a parent, but I asked my mom a couple of times and I don't know if I ever got an answer from her of why they don't feel sometimes that they're doing a good job with their own kid when it has a disability. Because when it comes to my parents, they did the best they could, both of them, to raise who I am. I have cerebral palsy, so it's not easy to raise somebody with cerebral palsy or any other disability, let alone Down syndrome or autism or something like that. They have different you guys have different challenges, right? That every person with a disability has different challenges. So, but it's really interesting to me to know why they don't, as a parent, sometimes why they don't feel like, or they doubt that they are doing a good job. You know what I mean? Because you're doing the best you can, in my opinion, right? So
that's a good one, especially because I am a constant sufferer of mom guilt. Like I never feel like I'm doing enough. And I think part of that is the expectation society puts on all parents, really, like, oh, your kid shouldn't act out and your kid should do this. And you know, you should have your kid going to 3 different activities and you should be like, there's just so much pressure put on parents. And if you're not fitting into that mold, then you instantly feel like you're failing them. Which it sucks. Like, and sometimes, you know, you're doing the best that you can. And sometimes it's just that people say things that they don't realize comes across as offensive. And then as a parent, you internalize that and you're like, oh my God, like they think I'm doing a terrible job. They, you know, they think I could be doing more. Like, how can I do more? And then that's really where parents start to experience that burnout. But when you have a child with disabilities, those children don't fall into those molds of like those well-behaved, expected, like do everything that's expected of them kids. And like, especially with my little guy, he is very, I can't think of what the correct term is right now, but oftentimes other parents don't realize that he's on the spectrum unless I say something. And so sometimes they just think he's this really busy, rowdy kid. And I'm like, oh, well, actually, like, he's on the autism spectrum. They're like, oh, well, I never would have known. So you must be doing a good job. And I'm like, well, it's not just that. Like, it's not just that. But I do think that there's a lot of pressure put onto parents, whether your child has a disability or is neurotypical. And it's just amplified when you do have a disabled child versus a neurotypical. And then the hard part is if you have more than one. So in my case, I get a lot of mom guilt because I worry that I spend too much time with one over the other. And, you know, my son Jake has extra things he needs done, whereas like Hannah's pretty self-sufficient.
Yeah.
Everything like that. But one thing I've really learned and started to try and implement a little bit more to try and, I don't know, make myself feel better, I guess, is I've worked on understanding my kids' love languages and trying
love
to
languages,
do that a little
yes.
bit more. So my son is way, like, he is gifts and acts of service. What can you give me and what can you do for me? Whereas my daughter is 100% like the quality time and the physical affection, the amount of times I hear in a day, cuddle, like, so
yeah, absolutely.
So I do try and work with those a little bit more and understanding who my kids are as individuals, because you can't treat them the exact same, and I'll never be able to treat them the exact same because they have different needs, different desires, everything like that.
Yeah, I love the love languages, and I knew about them. Like, I'm a step parent, so we talk a lot about love language in my stepmom support groups and stuff, but I never thought about it for kids for the longest time until, with my daughter, it is a lot of sensory. She loves like those moments where she's like, can you brush my hair? And then get a back scratch, and then, rub my feet, like those kinds of things. She loves those. And sometimes I'm like, okay, at the end of the day, especially when it's at bedtime, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I'm tired and I'm done, but I know that yes. And then I'm like, and she's 12. So it's not like she's, she's self-sufficient as well, but there has been, she likes the acts of service and the physical affection as well. Like, she loves nothing more than to be in her room and for me to like bring her a snack plate and here you go. And but those are, that's just what she needs, and you got to push through it sometimes. But I love taking love languages out of, like, not just for couples, but putting it into your kids as well. I love that.
And that's great how it evolves through the years, because I remember when I was young, everyone was like, okay, we're not going to treat Carlos any different than the rest of his children, right? But again, at the same time, through the years, you understand, again, as you, Meaghan, and Leah are saying, that there's a love language for each kid. There's a lot of, there's something I need that my sister didn't need it, and there's something my sister needed that my that I didn't need it, and that my brother didn't need it at the time, right? So it's interesting how times have evolved to the point of like, okay, we're not going to treat that much different the kids from each other, but we're going to treat them as they want to be, as their love language is, you know what I mean? Because it's not like, okay, if Carlos is likes massages in his back, and when he's 13, everybody's gonna get massages in the back. Well, what if my sister doesn't want it and my brother doesn't want it? You know what I mean? So it's different how the times evolved, and how education and parenting is so different than it was during my mom's time, like when I was, or even during your time, Leah, because you're a little bit older than I am. We're not going to say how old, but even though you don't look older than I am, but you are a little bit older. But even during your parents' time, it was different than my parents' time. You know what I mean? So it's really cool how things have evolved to the point of like that you now can think about love languages with your kid instead of just not thinking about it anymore. You know what I mean? So
and of course, and not treating you different. I follow a family on TikTok, and there's a young man named Thorn who's on autism spectrum, and he's like in his mid-20s, I think. He's older, and he's mostly nonverbal, but he'll say words, but not like full sentences. And he like screams a lot, and he shows through, noise and everything. But his brothers are like brothers, like they torture him. They're brothers. And it's funny, the comments, a lot of people are like, why would you allow them to treat him like that? Why? And his mom's always like, because they're siblings. Just because has autism doesn't mean that he's not a brother. Like it gives him that normality experience, and we're not treating him any different just because. And his one brother, Troy, just does these things, and it's funny, and he just gets so mad, but it's like at the same time, that's brothers.
Yeah.
Well, it's age appropriate too, right? Like I know my
Yes.
kids are just getting to that kind of sibling rivalry thing, and it's age appropriate. So yes, like I tell our support team about that because we've been very fortunate to have a really great support team. So I'll tell them, oh, you know, like this is happening. And they said it's a bit of a concern, but also age appropriate. So
Yes.
we should be, as much as like people are like, oh, like you shouldn't do that, we should be celebrating. It's social interaction. It's age
Yes.
appropriate. It is what needs to be happening. Because that's going to teach them, right? Like how to take a joke and how to, you know, be
Stand up for
part of
himself
a
a bit,
culture,
you know?
how to stand
Like,
up for himself.
yeah,
Oh, man,
voice.
my daughter is like a force to be reckoned with most days.
Mhm.
Like she went to a preschool just down our street, and when
Mhm.
she started, she was the only girl with like 15 boys, and
Oh, wow.
she
Wow.
held her ground. Like those boys did not mess with her. She held her ground, and part of that was growing up with a brother who's a little bit rowdy, and who I've always enforced that. Oh, tell him you don't like that, take your toy back, like everything like that, because it's socially appropriate. So siblings teasing each other is socially appropriate.
normal.
Just because one has a disability doesn't mean they shouldn't still experience that part of life.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Remember that school we went to, Carlos? You went to go do a presentation, and there was a young boy. I can't remember where he was from, but they had given him, he was nonverbal, but they gave him a tablet to communicate, and all of the other boys in the class were typing in curse words for the tablet to say. But the school was like, we love it because that's exactly what kids do. And he's just
I have a story.
He's
part
fitting.
of like a normal,
He's fitting.
you know,
He's fitting
experience.
with. Yeah, he's fitting with the classroom, and that's what that's what the teacher wants in a way. As long as there's a difference between bowling and interacting with the kid and kind of teaching curse languages, mostly when cursing you might think is not a good thing because you're teaching him bad words.
Yeah.
But I mean, when the kid is from another country, which this was the case, and you're trying to fit him into the Western culture / Western classroom, I think it's fine, and I think that's why the class allows it, or the teachers or whatever.
And we know boys in that age, like they were like 8 or 9 or whatever. We know they're swearing and they're experimenting with all of that kind of stuff. And it was just sort of like, like you're making him just another one of the boys because that's what he is, you know, but you're giving him that feeling of what it's like to be included. I don't know. That's one of my favorite stories.
Okay, so funny add-on to that. I used to work as an EA when in my early 20s. Actually, I did it for about 10 years, just subbing and everything like that. It wasn't quite 10 years. Oh man. Anyway, I spent a lot of time in a high school with a developmental classroom, and one of the guys in the class, and literally we were a year apart in age too. So that was kind of because like they could stay there until they were 21, and I was 21 at the time, and he was 20, and he had an acquired brain injury, and he could type with his eyes, but he really he had one of the tablets that hung, and he could write words with his eyes and stuff like that. And there would be days where he would just be really, really down. And so I actually started, and it probably wasn't the most professional, but I was 21, so whatever. I started putting in silly, almost like dad jokes and really cheesy pickup lines in it. I have never seen him laugh so hard. And I did it every day. He'd be ready to go to a class, and I'd push it, and it would be like, did you fall from heaven? Or whatever. But he laughed, and he got so much joy out of it. So I kept doing it. Nobody gave me shit. So
exactly, right? No, it's great.
Why not?
Have some fun. People are scared to do that, you know, and you shouldn't be. You just treat everybody just like we do with Carlos. I'm mean to him. The other day he was making his way to the bathroom at work, and I wanted to fill up the kettle, and I ran past him and did it, and I said, I just want to get this done before you get there. And he was like, what the heck? And I'm like, sorry.
She just literally went in front of me like this and went into the washroom.
I know you're gonna be another 30 seconds. I'm just gonna go right there.
I thought it was kind of mean, but I thought it in a joking way. Yeah, I
I
know.
would have done it to anybody else. And I would, if it was my brother, I would have been like, oh, wait. And I would have run by him and exactly what I would have done.
My kids do that to me, but then they take forever. And I'm like, but I gotta go.
Fine.
I gotta go.
Yes. I was just putting some water in the kettle. That's all I wanted. Needed my coffee.
Right? That's
Needed my
probably
coffee.
the most important thing in the
Exactly.
day.
So how, like, what do you have a timeline going for when everything's starting, or you're just kind of
I don't
still
right this
developing?
minute. I'm doing a little bit of crowdfunding, and it's also just to build awareness around disability. So I do have some tumblers for sale right now. I'm getting some bumper stickers made.
Oh, cool.
Different things like that. And then the other thing I'm doing is just working through the startup program through Bow Valley College. So that's where my pitch competition is next week. I'm hoping to win some money at it. And the nice part about this program is that they're investing in us. Not only are we getting coaching, but like that lovely Facebook ad you saw was actually one of our assignments. And so
I've seen like 3. I swear I've seen like 3 different ads pop
I
up, and I'm
posted a
always like,
bunch.
oh, there's another one.
I've actually had one of the better conversion rates out of everybody. Like, so we had to post those ads and then do those 10 interviews. I think I ended up getting 15 interviews done at the end of the day, and just like, I think I had 90 people fill out the thing on my website. So part of that, and part of the reason we do that, is to validate the business, to make sure it's something that will actually succeed and that people want to see. Which I've gotten really great feedback and lots of great invitations too. So not only am I talking to people who visit coffee shops, I have talked to other organizations like Autism Edmonton or Autism Tech. Like, I'm not focused on autism, those are just the only ones that are coming to my head right now. But a bunch of those organizations, I've talked with them. I also had a meeting with the Self Advocacy Federation and presented the idea to them and got some feedback, and that was invaluable, like, because I just got so much insight that I hadn't either thought about yet, or I didn't think about it that way. And so right now, I guess the big thing is trying to raise some of that capital, and then just really getting a full understanding. So for the next little bit, it is just going to be doing some fundraising, stuff like that. My goal is to try and raise as much of the money myself, because then I don't have interest payments and I can reinvest into expanding. Because I have lots of other ideas for services too. Like, I don't want to just stop at, a coffee shop and store. I want to host a summer camp that focuses on entrepreneurship, stuff like that. And then the other thing we're looking at adding in, partially because I know that there's grant funding for it, but also just because I think it's a great idea, is a community studio space within the cafe where people can come to do art. We'll offer some art therapy classes, as well as provide kits with just different art supplies. So if people want to come in and buy a kit, or if they want to bring their own supplies and use the space, like, they can do that. And really, like, the only thing we would charge would be for the purchase of the kit. Because the hope is if they come in, they're gonna want a coffee or something anyway. But it's to have that space that's accessible, that's quiet. I mean, not everybody wants to do art in their house. My kids love painting. I like it when they paint. I don't like cleaning up after they paint. And so it's creating that space, but also creating those opportunities, as you were saying before, where like people have art programs, stuff like that. It's then teaching them, like, oh, hey, look what you created. Let's post it on the wall and see if we can sell it. And really just kind of building that confidence, building that awareness of what possibilities are out there, because 9 to 5 doesn't work for everybody. Full-time, like, scheduled employment doesn't work for everybody. And so it's really teaching those opportunities, and really gaining that knowledge for everybody, and even just so hopefully, my hope is I'm going to start looking for a location in the fall or winter. I'm trying to be very intentional. I want it to be close to public transit so that it's accessible. The hope is that it'll have parking in the front, like right in front, and I can actually do like a drive-in style.
Okay,
to
yeah.
appeal to,
Thank-
like, I'm not necessarily going to find a building with a drive-through,
No.
but then that appeals to busy parents who don't want to get their crazy kids out of the car.
Yes.
So then they can still come and get coffee, support our business, but they don't have to necessarily get their kids out of the car and get moving. And the hope is it might be faster than a drive-through at the end of the day, because you can do 4 orders at once and get them
Oh,
out.
right. And then, yeah, bring them out. And if kids are sleeping or something, when you arrive and you're like, I just want to have my coffee and sit in the car.
Yep.
Great. Or
my daughter was the worst last year for falling asleep in the car when my son, like, we would drive him to school and we would get like 2 blocks from his school and she'd be asleep and I'd be like, so I'm spending the next hour in the car. I guess I'm going to the drive-through and I'm going to go park somewhere and like drink coffee. So
yes. Oh, that'll appeal to so many, you know, like so.
And
we'll do whatever we can.
And so nice that you're thinking about being close to public transit, because a lot of people don't think about it that way. And mostly when it comes to people think, oh, we have dads here, we have different public services that they can use. But some people like myself, we like to take the normal public transit where it's easy to connect. And yes, you can sometimes you're like thinking, well, it's not the best public transit in the city, but it is actually okay compared to other places, you know. And so it's kind of nice that you're thinking about having a business where there's a bus route that might be able to come fairly often there for people who might, they don't need to be in a wheelchair, they don't need to be in a walker, but I don't know, they might use a scooter, they might use, you know, some sort of limited mobility. They might be a senior who might want to enjoy coffee time in your place, even art. You know, there's some seniors who are painting, you know, and like some art stuff. So it's nice to see that you're thinking about it that way. So.
Yeah, well, and for the able-bodied and neurotypical people can come in and just see what the community's like. Sit back and watch and see how, you know, and just, you know,
It's funny that you say that. So one of the things I've done in my research for this was I was a crazy woman and I got up at 2 a.m. and I attended a inclusive workplace festival based out of England. So of course, because it was during the day there, it was in the middle of the night here. And so I did sleep through part of it, unfortunately, because I have kids, like it just didn't work. But a lot of the stuff they said was, instead of making it so that people feel that to get what they need out of an employer, they have to disclose, they just create adaptations and tools and everything like that anybody can use. And so it doesn't matter, because they're available for all. And that was kind of the thought with this as well, because before I knew that I was neurodiverse, I knew that I had sensory things, because if I went, and I learned this during Christmas shopping, but if I went shopping when it was really busy out, I was that awkward person who like pet every soft blanket I walked past.
Right.
And it didn't click on for me that was sensory until one day when I was like, what am I doing? But there's nothing to say that someone who's neurotypical couldn't use a weighted lap pad every once in a while if they have a stressful job or whatever. And so it really gives them that insight into, oh, hey, like you might have some of these needs as well, and bringing them into our community as well, which was where Connections came from. Like that was where my name idea came from. Originally, when I was a little bit more bitter, I was going to call it the Black Sheep Cafe, because I often feel like a black sheep in society. But I decided to go the more positive route.
Yep. I love it.
There's a bar in Edmonton already called the Black Dog. So.
Oh yeah, the Black Dog. Yeah,
Black
that's
Dog.
right. Yeah, I haven't been to a bar in a long time. Oh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So now we're going to get into our favorite part. What does life without limits mean to you? And do you feel like you are kind of living your life without limits?
Ooh, that's a really great question. Life without limits is, I think it's kind of like what I'm trying to create, where we're allowed to have adaptations and those allow us to live our fullest lives. And I think that right now society is missing the ball a little bit.
Yeah.
and so, or missing their mark. And I think that that's where that culture change needs to come as well. So yeah, that's kind of like life without limits for me, I guess, is not having strategies, because we all have limitations, but having those strategies to help us work through them and move past them. And yeah, like I think that right now society is missing the bar completely, and I think that that's what I'm hoping to transform a little bit. And I know that you can't help every person. No, I will not be able to give 100% of the population what they need, but I can at least reduce barriers and limits for other people. One of the things I use when I do my pitch competitions, it's on like usually my first slide, is a quote from Tuesdays with Maury, where if the culture is wrong, don't buy it, create your own. And that's kind of where my mentality is right now, is that I feel like society is letting this population down, and so I'm gonna create my own community out of it.
Gonna shake things up a little bit, and absolutely.
Because like the sky's the limit at this point. Like I've already been in talks about doing inclusive employment conferences with some other organizations that work with employment opportunities, and trying to really hit home that like there is capability here and it's a missed opportunity for your company. And really trying to break down those barriers or those assumptions that people make. I worked with a lady with Down syndrome one time who, when she came to work, she would sit and she wouldn't do anything. And I asked a question, and one of the girls was like, oh, that's just what she does. And I said, well, have we tried giving her like a list so she remembers what she's supposed to be doing when she gets here? And they go, oh no, she can't read. And I was like, okay. So I was getting her involved in stuff, and we were chit-chatting one day, and I just said, oh, like, what are you doing this weekend? And she goes, oh, I'm going to be reading The Hunger Games. It's my favorite book. And I was like,
interesting.
Well then. And so giving her a list, she started helping. She started interacting more with the staff and the kids. You know, we started inviting her to our Christmas party. She cried when I gave her her first invitation to a Christmas party. Her mom called me and cried later. Like, so we're letting these people down, because lots of these businesses, even when they hire people with disabilities, and not every one of them, but there are lots out there, that they get a backroom job, or they get
you're right,
cleaning bathrooms or whatever, and they don't always get invited to these staff functions and everything like that. So I want to change that. That's not right. That is creating more limitations as opposed to taking them away. So
that's awesome. That's very awesome what you're trying to do, because it is true that we are one of the biggest thing my mom said happened in Mexico and in the 80s when I was born, is that a lot of persons with disabilities not only stay home because parents were ashamed of showing their kids, but when they had a job, they were put on, you know, in the back of the room, in the places where you don't see them, right? And then they don't interact with the rest of the staff because they don't fit in, or they didn't fit in, you know. And we're in the 21st century now, where a person with a disability, whether it's in a wheelchair, scooters, whatever they use, they're able to interact with anything. I mean, our board of directors, we have what, 2 or 3 people with this disability in our board of directors, Leah?
And we have a mom who has, I think, 12 or 13 kids in her home and her care. They're foster kids and adopted kids. So yeah, we've got like, we're going to have our board president on the podcast. We're going to talk to him next week.
And they're all amazing. And you know, they're not only because they're on board of directors, but they both have careers, all have careers and everything. So it's amazing. It's really amazing to see people like yourself who's trying to open the doors, you know, for the community, and showing the community that they don't need to be in the back of a mail-in room, in the back of, or cleaning out toilets, which, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that's wrong per se either, but
it needs to be done. It's an important job.
Yeah, it needs to be done. It's an important job, but you can include them into your staff events or staff meetings as well, because they do want to be a part of that, for sure.
Yeah,
and they need
Absolutely.
something fulfilling, right? Like, so
Mhm.
some people really love to clean, and that's
Absolutely.
fantastic. Give them
Yeah.
those jobs. But for people who don't love to clean, and for to say, like, you know, go, you're going to do this cleaning job, whatever. Or maybe it's just the wrong type of cleaning job. So there's a program in Saskatchewan called 4 to 40. And I didn't work for 4 to 40, but I worked for an organization that partnered with them. We were a supported living thing.
Okay.
And one of the gentlemen there, I actually had a really good cry over this, but when I used to, they call it support instead of work, but when I used to support him, he worked for, it wasn't a coffee shop per se, but it was a coffee supplier. So he cleaned urns and he did all that stuff, and he hated his job. Like, he was
Mhm.
absolutely miserable. And his dream in life was to be some type of first responder. Like, he wanted to be a police officer, or he wanted to be something like that. And there was actually a news article about 2 years ago where he had kind of kept doing what he was doing, and he worked on getting better, and now he actually works at the fire station. He helps with cleaning, he helps with organizing, so he's still cleaning,
Wow.
but it's stuff he wants to clean, and it's
Yeah.
fulfilling for him. And I remember like reading that article and just like
Bawling.
sobbing. Oh my god, like, I'm so happy for him. Like, because a lot of the individuals we had supported had come out of really rough situations. They'd been kicked out of other group homes, you know, different things like that. And so to see that level of success was like heartwarming. And then there was another one where another man that I used to support too, actually, where like employment just didn't work for him. His anxiety was too rough. So now he's making wood furniture and selling it, and still being fulfilled and creating an income for himself. And it's just so like amazing to see. And that's what I want to try and see grow, especially because I know that my kid is totally capable. Like, he could take over the world if that's what he decided to do. But he'll be underestimated, like, with the way that society is today. He will be underestimated, and people will not think he is capable.
Well, we need to continue doing the great job you're doing, and advocating for all of our individuals with disabilities, because the more we have persons like yourself, Meaghan, who want to open the doors for people with disabilities and for people who have multiple abilities, the more the world is going to change and the culture is going to change. And I think the culture needs to change. And if it doesn't change, as you say, we have to create more of our own culture, right? So the more we have people that want to create their own culture, I think the better the world is going to be, and the more the life without limits is going to be. So thank you so much, Meaghan, for being a part of the show. I don't know if Leah, you have any more questions?
No questions. I'm just going to say that, you know, as you progress on this venture, we'll have you back on and to talk about, you know, like, I think this was a great conversation that was more than what you're doing. It turned into a whole mom thing, which is great.
I love talking about this stuff. I could talk about Temple in the Face, so I will come back anytime.
Perfect.
Yeah, we would love to have you back for sure. And
we'll stay connected. We'll help you get the word out there. And if you need connections, we know, you know, we can connect her with Brad, you know, to help if you want him to look at a space with you about accessibility, you know, those kinds of things.
And if when you start your fundraising, just let us know, and then we'll definitely help. We'll definitely join and help you out. I love helping people when they do fundraising for amazing cause. And yeah, I was actually on an event on Sunday, which I didn't even know if I was going to be there, and Brad was actually doing a fundraising for event at a bar that I usually go there all the time. So it's exciting. So exciting. So if you ever have some events, let me know, hit us up, and I'll be there helping out. So.
Yeah, thank you so much.
No problem.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for Meaghan once again for being a part of this. Thank you, Leah, for creeping out on Meaghan and creeping out.
I know. What I do best.
Continuously finding people. I think it's great what you do, and having people on our show is amazing. That's why I keep saying Leah is the brain of the show. And so thank you for this, Leah, and to our listeners, thank you to listen to this episode. I know it's going to come out in a little couple of days. but
Mhm.
I hope you enjoyed as much as we did. Make sure to continue to approach us, continue to ask questions, continue to join our Instagram page. It's My Life Without Limits podcast, not challenge, My Life Without Limits podcast. And feel free to join our Instagram page and check our website. And thank you so much to all of you. And thank you. Make sure to continue to live your life without limits. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.